Afternoon, everyone, from Sydney, Australia. It is really quite amazing to actually being able to deliver a lecture in this manner, which is very important because this is the topic that has me most excited and has had for quite some time. Thank you for the opportunity. It is a real honour to be able to speak and share some of my experiences with the digital world. So I have to do a couple of disclosures. The first is that I'm a fisherman. I love fishing. I will fish in a bathtub. And secondly, I do have shares in one of the monitoring companies. So firstly, what about me? And I guess the most important thing, if you look at this here, is that I've been around for a long time. I graduated in 1990. I've been in private practice for over 30 years, which is longer than my new associate informed me. His 31st birthday was going to be in a few months after my 31st anniversary. I've been involved in lecturing and the Australian Society of Orthodontists over that period of time. Being around for a long time, I actually started with fixed appliances, banding all the teeth. And as you can see, we have the banded appliance, which happens to be the Beg appliance, which is what I was originally trained in. And I was bending up some of these springs and auxiliaries as well. I used to have calluses on my fingers from wire bending. And with the evolution of bonded brackets, as we know, and pre-adjusted brackets, I've continued the evolution to now using the digital technologies to allow me to have robots bending my wires and allowing my assistants or hygienists, in our case, to put the wires in for me. So I no longer have calluses. With my aligner experience, when they first turned up, I sat down with a good friend of mine and we said, I think this is going to make a difference to our orthodontic world. And sure enough, it has. So over the 17 odd years, I've finished about 2,500 cases and continue to do so. It's an evolving thing. All right, as I said, I've been around for a long time. If you see all those appliances on the right of the slide, I've used pretty much everything and had a go at anything and seen many of the next best things. So why is something different today? Digital orthodontics has been around for quite some time, especially since the advent of the scanners about 10 years ago, I'd say. Aligners obviously are now easier if you don't have to do impressions. Customized bracket positioning, you can and bracket placement. You can order jigs with the brackets in them, customized wires. That's been there for a while. It's getting easier to use, but it's pretty much old news. We've been able to, as orthodontists, avoid the necessity to take all of this up and continue along our merry way. Can we continue to do so? I don't think we can. I really think that artificial intelligence-powered remote monitoring is a game changer, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. And if we ignore it, I think we'll be in trouble. Here are just 4 companies, and there was one a few years ago, and now they're coming up all over the place. Just as many probably as the direct-to-consumer aligner companies are just mushrooming all over the place. Why do I think this is so important for us? Up until now, we've been able to dictate to our patients what they were going to get in terms of treatment, and they pretty much had to come to us. And this has really, really changed significantly. Even why now before we've had the companies? Well, I think it's the remote monitoring that's going to do that. Today, at the moment, dentists are delivering aligners, direct-to-consumers are delivering aligners, indirect bracket setups that can be delivered to dentists, customised wires to dentists and orthodontists, obviously. And it allows remote delivery of sometimes, and more often than not, poor orthodontic care. If we, as skilled practitioners, can oversee this, and this is what the AI will deliver for us, we will be able to get delivery of quality orthodontic care. And this is already happening in my practice here in Sydney. The other thing is, do the patients want this to happen? And I guess the pandemic, I was using monitoring before the pandemic, and monitoring has increased greatly since the pandemic, obviously. But do the patients want it, or do they think they're being pushed around, more importantly? A few years ago, the confidence of patients, and this was doing robotic dentistry, was around 60%. Now this is up to 80 and 90%, where people are comfortable with, agree with, and are happy to communicate digitally with a consultant, with a doctor, with a dentist, with an orthodontist. And this is part of my new digital virtual office. As we know, telehealth has increased 38-fold since the pandemic, and it isn't going down, but it's stabilised. Since the pandemic started as well, monitoring has increased around the world, and it will continue to increase. And I guess most importantly, big tech giants are starting to spend a significant amount of money on this telehealth and telemedicine delivery. So this will only become a greater and greater part of what we have to deal with, invest in, look at. So what is today's patient journey? With the advent, and here's my little phone, with the advent of the smartphone, we can meet the patients where they want to be met, and they want to be met there. They want to be met at home. With monitoring, we can help control or better control oral hygiene. We can detect breakages and debonds earlier. We can anticipate issues of treatment earlier. We can track the passivity of the wire. Is it still active or is it passive? We can manage overjet and overbite correction simply by monitoring and having the systems in place that allow us to do so. With aligners, compliance, we can easily check compliance. We can find out if we need to have another refinement, what we can do with it, and or with retention relapse if they're not wearing their retainers. How does this work? Very simply, we get out a smartphone and you use the application. The doctor and the team gets their own dashboard. The patient gets their own personalised dashboard. And it's a very sophisticated communication system that really makes it look very simple for the patient and for an organised practitioner. And I say organised, this doesn't go and work by itself. It requires us to put it all in place. The doctor's dashboard has all the information that you might need. It shows the scanning timelines, it shows photos of the scans, and it shows a summary of what we're looking for with the patient. In addition, patients now start communicating with us. And in fact, patients get better communication than sending in emails, and more direct communication, and they're much more engaged. That was one of the interesting things that we found out, is that while monitoring, patients complain that we're noticing when they're not wearing their aligners or they're not brushing their teeth, which is not what I would have expected, because I am historically a very conservative, traditional practitioner, or I was. In addition, and this is probably the most important part, is that the system has to be set up for you and your team and what you want to monitor. And that's probably the most important thing I'll say on that. This isn't a discussion about how the mechanics of this work. The discussion is, whether it's worthwhile or not. And hopefully you will see that there is some worthwhile things to go with this. Let's look at some clinical examples. So wire activation is an interesting concept. We put a wire in, patient walks out the door, and some 8 or 10, or it used to be 4 and 6 weeks, but now the wires can be active for many, many weeks. And sometimes when a patient hasn't come back in 3 months, that wire you put in has worked its way out and the teeth are almost straight, and you're kind of going, well, how did that happen? We generally like to step in a bit too early. Now, how do we know whether it's too early or late? We don't. We take a guess. And then usually we change a wire because they've come in and we should do something. Is it the right thing to do, though? So if you are able to, or were able to, and we are able to monitor, you can see from the chart that the maxillary and mandibular wires here are being monitored, and the movement and the activation of the teeth is leveling off. Once you reach that horizontal level, the wire will become passive. Now, this could happen. Sometimes it happens in 5 weeks. Sometimes it happens in 16 weeks. So if you've got a self-ligating system and you've got the wires and nothing breaks, the patient doesn't need to come in for 16 or 20 or whatever weeks. On the other hand, if you've got them coming in at 10 weeks and you see the wire is passive at 5 weeks, then you can get them to come in at 5 weeks and change the wire to keep their treatment moving more efficiently. You're going to ask me, well, what about the appointments? How can you get that appointment so soon? And that's a little bit further down the track. In addition, you can actually see the movement of each tooth in many, many different dimensions. You can look at it any which way you like. So it is very, very sophisticated. If we look at soft tissues, this is one of the ones which is quite interesting because I've actually found an abscess on a patient, adult patient who had a root canal therapy. Everything was fine. And during the lockdown period, in this instance, there was a mucosal irregularity found on a particular tooth. This is a different example where there's an ulcer, obviously, but we got the patient in and, yeah, there was an abscess, and this abscess would come up and go down, come up and go down. So very, very useful. Here's some trauma and healing. No idea what this young boy is doing, but he's doing it on the other side as well. We think he's probably picking at his aligners and just probably part of a nervous habit. Breakages. Wouldn't it be good to know when the bracket came off and the patient came in that they didn't come and tell you, oh, that happened a week after I left? So here we can see a disengaged wire. It'll tell you that there's a wire that's been disengaged. The wire is disengaged actually on both sides. And as you can see from the slide after that, it was simply cut as a repair. Again, power chain is damaged, disengaged at 4-5, which may or may not be relevant. You might say, well, that's fine. We're close to D-band, or you might say, well, that's no good. And here on the other slide, you can see that here's a damaged bracket on the 1-4 on the same patient. These things may or may not be relevant, but certainly much better to know as it's happening rather than after 8 weeks. And effectively what monitoring does for us is it takes our profession from being a reactive profession into a proactive profession. So we don't just sit and do something and wait to see what happens. We can actually see what's happening and make adjustments if we need to as we go. Whether it's bite opening, we don't just have to then say, oh, gee, that didn't work, let's do this. It is really amazing. Okay, retention. Are they wearing their retainers? Are the teeth moving? So in this particular instance, tooth 1-1 was noted to move 0.2 of a millimetre in retention. And as it turns out, when the patient came in, there was a lingual retainer and the bond had come off tooth 1-1. It's better to find it at 0.2 of a millimetre than 1 millimetre and really sticking out. Here's the tooth and the retention model and what had happened. So physically, you couldn't even see it. Oh. Here we go. Phase 1. So we're using monitoring of our patients during phase 1. Starting to do this, we started doing this early this year. Here's a patient and using monitoring, and we placed the RME, pretty much went into lockdown anyway, and we just watched, and I said, keep turning, stop turning, turn a little bit more, making some space for the upper lateral incisor. And then it went on and on and on. And then the next time I saw him, I said, look, it looks pretty good. And this is, 11 months later. Okay, let's take them off. And he didn't attend the practice during this whole period of time. Here is a phase 1 before probably fixed appliances, and we're doing some rapid expansion. How much expansion do you want? We can see whether there's molar flaring, what we need to do, and all these instructions can just get sent straight through to the patient. And the patient's often confident. They come in and they say, oh, what's this gap doing? Why are my teeth sore between the 2 front teeth, etc., etc. We can answer all these questions. Interestingly enough, as well, in advances, we can look at molar and canine correction. I like using the carrier appliance. How long do I need to use it for? Are they wearing the carrier? Are they not wearing the carrier? And here we can see whether class 1 has been achieved or not. As you can see, in March of 2021, both the cuspids are in class 2. And in October 2021, we can see that it's 2 millimetres class 2 on the left and it's class 1 on the right-hand side. So we can deliver our instructions to say, wear your right side elastic night only, and full-time on left side night only, and on the right full-time. And please come in and get a stronger elastic, or wear 2 elastics, or whatever we choose to do. Observation patients. We have different types of monitoring. We also use our website, and patients can send in their own photos. And yes, they're not particularly good, some of them. In this instance, though, our original photos in the clinic are on top. And you can see, here's a young person, and we're going to decide, are we going to do some phase 1 treatment? And if we are, when should we do it? So here we are probably waiting for the lateral incisors, or if we see that they're not coming through, should we make space? Whatever it might be. But these photos were taken at home. Mum doesn't have to drop one kid off at tennis, the other one at study, and then come and see us for me to say, oh, no, not ready yet, bye. Life is very, very busy, and these are really, really convenient tools to have in our armamentarium. Here's a patient, again, during lockdown. Here we're waiting to start phase 2. The photos are better. We're teaching our patients how to use spoons. At the time we were, this was through the lockdown, but now we are actually giving our patients their own retractors and asking them to do this at home. So this patient's waiting to see, do we need treatment? And essentially said, look, all the teeth are through. Come in, get some records. Let's have a look and see what we want to do. So in order to have this function, our practice has completely changed in the last 12 months. And I guess it's now a combined, obviously, physical practice, but a digital and virtual practice as well. We started remote monitoring in 2016. And as you would expect, the reason we did that was, I like technology, and I thought it'd be really, really good to be able to see our patients less often and be able to control the treatment. We like control. We're orthodontists. We like to control everything. So we started in 2016 and we go, our patients can come in from every 8 weeks to every 12 to 14 weeks. Well, that's really good. Then you start getting the issue in your own mind as orthodontists. Well, will our patients still demand or want to see us? And if they don't come as often, how can we charge the money? And will treatment still work out as well? All very legitimate and absolutely the same thing that I went through. And not only me, but my team, all right? So this is very important. So then to make things even worse, once you start monitoring, why do you need to see the patients? You can monitor the patients. And if you set it up correctly, you can completely eliminate your appointment book, except for starts and D-bands. And then any other appointment is an appointment on demand. So either only for an archwire change, IPR or scan or detailing adjustment. In my case, I do that remotely and have the wires made and sent to me and put in. Even fewer appointments. So will they? The answer is very much a yes. They will. But they will only in one specific circumstance, a specific, very important circumstance. If you don't believe that they're going to get better service, higher quality of care, and be more efficient, if you don't believe it, if your team doesn't believe it, they won't believe it. They'll just think you're trying to shove patients through the door and make more money. Now, I think in order to help you with this belief system, I think you need to believe what Simon Sinek says, and that is people buy what you believe, not what you sell or do. Very, very important. We straighten teeth any day of the week. And all of you sitting together, you all straighten teeth, and you straighten teeth well. That's a given. We all went to university, we did all the courses. But importantly, what you do in your own businesses and practices, if you don't actually believe that you can deliver what you do, then others will know. So in my situation, this was by necessity. And we undertook a full digital transformation, and Simon Sinek talks about the golden circle, why, how, and what. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in October 2020 and diagnosed in November, operated in December, and didn't come back to work until early February. Pretty much January and February were gone. Now, the reason I say that is it was a necessity. What do we do with all our patients? I had 3 clinicians, and I ended up after the lockdown with only 1 clinician, and that was me. So we had to believe. and we had to make this work. So we did. I'm well, healthy, all is good, everything's gone, and my PSA is a 0. Any men out there that are over 50 years old, please get that little PSA done annually. But yes, so our team got together and did the most incredible amount of work to set us up to do it. And this is a book I can highly recommend. It's called The Infinite Game, and find out your why. Really, really amazing guy. Life isn't, you don't win at life. So you need to get up in the morning and have your why. What happened was, in 2019, before the lockdown, we had 11 clinical doctor days per week operating across 3 practices, but mostly across 2. 3 practices. We were seeing 100 new consultations per month, and we were doing 60 contract starts per month. When I came back to work in February of 2021, there was only one clinician, orthodontic clinician. I had hygienists working in the remote practice, and I had a dentist starting to work in the remote practice. I was doing myself 3.5 clinical doctor days per week. We were still seeing 100 new consultations per month, and we were still getting 60 contract starts per month. Now, how did this happen? And this is all about remote monitoring, remote virtual consulting, and using all the digital platforms to their most efficient. So this was driven by remote monitoring. We are now 70% aligners. That's neither here nor there, in the sense that I can probably gear up a little higher because there's less physical work that I need to do. We do appointments on demand, and that is very, very important. We have virtualized all our unnecessary appointments. Now, what that has equated to, interestingly enough, is obviously less chair time, but less cost. The most expensive thing that we have in our practices is sitting a patient down in the practice. So our virtual appointments, we now have 40% less appointments per month on month. This happened to be a February that I did from 2015 to 2021. At the moment, we're only about 10% less staff costs because there's a lot of digital remote work, but we're really only in, it's not even 12 months that we've put this in place, and we've had a whole lot of disruptions. But I suspect that will probably get to a 20% staff saving cost once we rationalise even further and keep it going. So believe it. It does work. It's really a lot of fun. And, there's a lot of extra time. So what can I do with the extra time? I can either work or I can play. This is a yellowtail kingfish caught in New Zealand of about 30 kilos. And work, and this is where our work's going to change, we will have the ability to control all those chairs if we wanted to. So how does my virtual office work now? Well, here we have what I do. I hydrate. My screen stands are old orthodontic and MIMS books. And I have opened the remote monitoring software, the digital software, and I have a virtual appointment schedule. And then I will sit there with a dedicated staff member, and then we will go through the virtual observations and instructions that each patient gets, and then that staff member then delivers those on my behalf. This happens to be our treatment coordinator. I just took a photo, but I do a lot of Zoom consultations as well, which I can do on a non-doctor day. Again, very straightforward and very simple and very successful. I can sit down and go through, this happens to be a align a treatment plan, but I can go through and explain things and ask questions, or they can ask questions. In order to make all this work, because we've also digitized our appliances, our retainers, and just about everything we possibly can, you need to have some sort of communication. We use a practice Google Doc for appliances, study models, aligners, and wires. So this is open to everybody, and everybody goes into it. Where is it? What is it? Where's it due? When's it due? What's my task? What is everybody else's task? In order to make this work, our patients have to be educated. So if we're going to do observation patients and retention patients, then they have to be educated. So we send that out to our patients via email. Our staff will get on and do a short Zoom to help them, and everything else. So how can I see 100 new patient consults a month in 3.5 days, a clinical week? So we now have 3 distinct sources of new patients. We have virtual new patients, which are done virtually off-site. One of our staff members barely comes into the practice, and she does our virtual new patients, new patient coordination. She contacts the new patients. She does a virtual consult with them. New patients with me as a normal consultation, we're actually charging for these. The other ones we don't charge. And new patient records appointments only with the treatment coordinators. So the virtual consultation, they will send photos through to the website. Usually I'll get a chance to look at those photos and just say, give the TC an idea of what treatment I would recommend, given obviously that I don't have all the data available, but it's a fair assessment. The Zoom call is set up, and this is actually quite a long Zoom call with the TC where we can build rapport and do all that kind of stuff. And then we get the patient to come in for records, and that's still on a non-doctor day. Then I will look at the records, and then we set up a Zoom consult with the patient, and then they can decide whether they start treatment or not. So through our website, we actually encourage patients to come in a couple of different spots so that they can actually put their data in, and we will contact them within 24 hours, more often than not, on the same day. Consults with me, as I say, consultation fee. The reason we're doing that is people take advantage. They just don't turn up. So we thought, okay, if you want to wait for me, then let's put a small fee in, and they do turn up. The final one, which is the interesting new one, is that there's a number of patients who are happy just to get the records and start. So these are patients who don't want to wait and or pay, new patients, and they're happy just to find out what's going on. Siblings of patients I've already treated. The parents know me. They know the practice. They know the people. Just let's get going. Second opinions, they often want to come in very quickly and early, and then I can do that through a Zoom. And observation patients, they just come in, they're ready to go. We can get the records and off we go. Now, it sounds like it becomes a factory. It actually isn't. It's the thing that holds it together is the team. The team are the ones that are doing most of the communicating for me, and they make the patients feel welcome and the parents feel welcome, and we just use all the remote digital systems we can. So the new patient record consults, where they come in, they get all the records. This is in the clinic, and then good TCs know what the treatment plan is. So then I'm just there to really confirm it, look for any issues or problems that we have, and then off we go. Now, the interesting thing is when I came back to work, I actually went to work and met a number of patients I'd never met. This wasn't ideal. So now we've created an oral health, oral function check with the hygienists so that we can make sure that this all works properly. Remote monitoring, automate it, delegate. Oral hygiene and perio, I get the hygienist to look at. If they have concerns, me as the doctor or my associate will look at it. Soft tissues, abscesses, etc., all of that stuff, that goes then straight from the hygienist straight to the doctor, and then we can do something about it. Actually, here is the case. This is the abscess. You can see the abscess above the 1-2, sorry. Unseats, inner liners, broken brackets, all that kind of stuff. They go straight into coming in to see the practice, the hygienist, get that done. Broken restorations, straight to the dentist if you see a broken restoration, and broken brackets. Here's a disengaged bracket in a self-ligating system. So, yes, and class correction we now have. Centre lines, monitoring treatment. I mean, it's an endless thing that you can create for yourself. And, now that I've been doing this for 30 years, it's nice not to be bending over someone as my only way of giving them advice and treatment and helping them. So use the team. If you're going to set up remotely with a system, you really have to use the team. You use the support team. If you don't train your staff, it'll fall over. It'll become one of those things that, Dr. Baisi, he went to Atlanta, the other year and came back with this. And, of course, it didn't work because, of course, they didn't let him make it work. I'm sure we've all been through that. Before I finish, though, it's really important because today's digital entrepreneur has the ability to set up a practice anywhere in the world with well-trained auxiliaries only. Now, what that means, and this is the world of the direct-to-consumer market, it's going to undercut our specialty. It is undercutting our specialty, all right? I'm just the messenger. These digital and monitoring systems out there are just going to get better and better. And if we take them up, make our lives much easier. So this isn't to scare you. This is to just show you what the whole new world is out there for you. Thank you so much. I hope this has been an exciting, interesting presentation, and there's something there for you to take away into your practices next week. Thank you so much.